Sniper.
Yeah.
Hello everybody, it's your friendly sneaky neighborhood samurai, BarryMcCaulkaner, coming to you live in this bow guide / tutorial. Now, some of you might be like, hold on. Gun Runners has a bow and arrow? And nope, the bow is free, but the arrows are DLC. So this looks to be a recurve bow. It's a high-powered, one-hit quitter with unlimited ammo. It's got a weapon sight that positions itself on whatever side you grab it from, with its current power dial right above it. As you can see, the power dial adjusts with how far back you've pulled the arrow. And it's kind of hard to tell in the video, but the actual reticle inside the sight does also move seemingly from left to right as you pull back. As I mentioned earlier, the weapon sight positions itself on whatever side you grab it from. In other words, the sight will be on the same side as the hand you use to grab it. I believe the reason for this is because the bow is intended to be used realistically, but I'll get more into that later. But back to the sight. You'll see the numbers that actually adjust with how far back you've pulled the arrow. Now this only determines how far the arrow will travel, and thankfully it does not affect the damage. As you can see here, no matter how weak of an arrow I fire, damage points stay the same. Here's a better visual of the damage points. It's going to be 200 to Shotty's head and body, and a clean 150 to any limb. Now the cool thing about the bow's damage is that its minimum damage is always going to be 150. So even a limb shot will break a shield plus inflict 50 damage. And that's half their health. Which means that a second limb shot will always finish them off, unless they're able to get a kill before you kill them, because that'll give them the standard 10 HP from the kill, effectively bringing them up to 160. And that's enough to survive a second limb shot. Much like the other weapons, you'll start by grabbing the bow with whatever hand feels most comfortable. Then you'll use the grip button with the other hand to grab the bowstring. Now, while the trigger button looks to be doing the same grabbing action, it's not, so make sure you're using the grip button. And at this point, you want to pull back and almost across your chest, just like the picture. Actually, no, not just like the picture. This ain't real life. Jerry, where did this picture... Alright, sorry about that. Had a can, Jerry. Anyways, as I was saying, as you can see, you can fire the bow pretty much as fast as you're able to pull the arrows back, which is pretty cool. Now that is unless you are absolute garbage at spamming like myself, and instead fire arrows with ED. But we won't talk about that later. So the bow is definitely one tough son of a gun to aim, but starting off, we have Mr. Professional Archer style. This is going to be the ideal technique to use to hit long-range shots, because you'll have a full visual of the weapon sight and can use it accordingly. This is also known as the Verti by me and now by you. Downside of this one is the time it takes to do properly and effectively, so it's a no-go for close quarters. Next up, we got the hybrid, but is really any angle not completely horizontal or vertical. This one's my preferred choice, as I can usually see about half to 3/4 of the sight, which gives me a good enough idea of where I'm shooting. A little less accurate, but it's much quicker than the Verti. Now this leads us to the last technique, the gangsta style. I've heard it's the easiest style to spam with, but I personally find it hard to use, especially when I'm moving around a lot and getting near walls. Regardless, this entire part really just comes down to personal preference. So give them all a try and see which one works best for you. And if none of them work for you, that's not my problem. Don't come at my channel. Barry ain't responsible for your KD. So one undeniable thing about the bow is that it is one big mother. It's massive. And because of this, it quite often gets knocked around by walls, ceilings, and even floors. And taking note of how big it is and how it does get knocked around into walls so much, you'll learn that you kind of have to get used to using all of the forms, as it'll be more advantageous to, say use a Verti here, or say the hybrid in another area. Not to mention, the bow is so dang big that you often end up grabbing it when trying to wall climb, or much like I'm doing here, throw yourself backwards. Or just as you'll see here, just trying to grab a wall, period. This has actually almost killed me several times in station when I'm down near the lava and I'm trying to stay low. Another big one is definitely those pesky limbs. When somebody is looking at you, especially when they're aiming at you, it's very easy for their arms to block head or body shots. Much like you'll see right here. That should have been a head or body shot, but clearly I am Brett Favre because that crap got intercepted. And if it's not pesky limbs getting in the way, it's this more than tricky hitbox. So here's a picture of it. As you can see, the head and neck is one thing. The head is the neck is the head. There also is no thing such as the hips or the shoulders. Those are arms and legs. But if you look closely, you'll notice that because the body is somewhat of an oval shape, the legs and the way that they're attached, they do actually reduce quite a bit of area that would normally register a body shot. Alright, so on to helpful tips and tricks. So I used to think it was the ball holding hand that did most of the aiming, and it sort of is, but it actually only does the rough aiming, if you will. It's the other hand that you use to draw back the arrow that fine-tunes the aim. So because of that, when I pull an arrow back, I rest the ring of the controller on my jaw, kind of like here, to stabilize my shot. It's also good for muscle memory and follow-up shots because you'll get used to always pulling your hand back to that exact same spot. Now, some things are kind of more easily shown than told. So one thing I did want to do is kind of break down some of the clips that I had at the beginning to give you guys a better idea of what exactly I'm doing. Now, for the most part, this clip has to do with how familiar you are with the movement in this game, so I won't get into that too much, but I'll try to keep this bow related. One of the things I am doing in this clip is I'm using my dash to keep whoever I'm shooting at directly in front of me. Here I dash right for this kill, and then I dash left to hopefully hit the horse and the Hans, but I do unfortunately miss. But using that technique will prevent you from having to shoot in an uncomfortable way off to your side, and will also help keep you mobile, as well as keep your target directly in front of you. I did want to rewind here real quick. Can we get this shit fixed? Because boy does it confuse the hell out of me sometimes, and it makes me look bad on the stream. You can even hear my confusion or even unknowingness of what my kill streak actually was there.
That was a 7.
Another thing I wanted to mention is the natural tendency, for some at least, to lower the bow after every shot. Now this ties into what I was saying earlier about how the hand that grabs the bow does a rough aiming, while the other hand that knocks an arrow does a fine aiming. It's a two-part aiming system. So when you lower the bow, you're sacrificing accuracy for that next shot, having to re-aim both hands again. Now even I struggle to remember to do this, but I think another important thing to note here is that this part really only applies to medium to long range targets. Of course, when someone's closer, that quick aiming will be much more effective. So that's all I've got for you guys today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you found it helpful, be sure to share it with your friends. Together we can create an epic bow empire. And if you didn't enjoy the video, you better enjoy the funny clip at the end of my boy Gravy Yo-Yo.
Ooh, this is scary. So much. I flip-flop that. Nice shot.
Come on.
I don't know who's over here, but I'm shooting him.
No, baby! You jumped.